What's happening, Crypto Land? My name is Phil. This is the Fun with Crypto podcast. We're in season 2, and this is episode 24. Thank you very much for joining me again. In this episode, we are going to be having a really cool interview / discussion with Raumi75. I had actually met him when I did the Raspiblitz roundtable. And we just, we hit it off, and he's just a super cool guy. And he started up this, he started making this website called bircoin.top. It's kind of a bit of a tribute to McAfee's price prediction, but he essentially made this price prediction website that also includes some, some really cool resources for, Bitcoin beginners, but also what you could do is you could model your own price predictions. And I know on this podcast, we don't usually talk about price predictions, but it's still fun, and this is in the spirit of that fun. So, without further ado, here is my talk with Raumi75. All right, everybody in Crypto Land. I've got a special guest with me, somebody that I met when I was on the Raspiblitz roundtable. His name is Raumi75 on Twitter, and he has a really interesting website that, even though we don't like to talk about Bitcoin price too much because that's, not really so interesting, but at the end of the day, it's always on the back of everyone's mind. And he's made a really cool website called bircoin.top, and I'll share that information in the show notes. And it's essentially a Bitcoin price tracker, and I've got him on the show today to tell us about it. And thank you very much for joining us, Raumi.
Yeah, it's great to be on your show. Yeah, great.
Cool.
Nice. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So tell us about this. This is really interesting.
Yeah, first of all, I totally agree with you. The price is only secondary. I think at the end of the day, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin, no matter what the market price is. But let's not kid ourselves. The price is really exciting. It's going up and down, and some of us are a little bit invested in Bitcoin. Some are a little more invested. And so it matters. And so that's why I know people are looking at the price. And so I was looking at the price too. And one day I was coming across a site that was tracking the progress of the bet that John McAfee made. And I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with it. It started with a really silly tweet that was in July 2017, where he made a bet and he said one single Bitcoin would be worth $200,000 in 3 years. And at that time, the closing price was like $2,200. So that was totally out of the question. And then people were kidding him and said, "You can't be real about this." And then he said, "If not, I will eat my dick on national television." I'm not sure if we're not safe for work here, but I just quote him.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we're all good.
Yeah. All right. So, and people are really referring to that all the time, and they were making fun of him. And he was assuring us that he's still serious about that. And after a while, he even tweeted an upgrade to his bet. And he said, and I quote, "When I predicted Bitcoin at 500,000 by the end of 2020, it used a model that predicted $5,000 at the end of 2017. BTC has accelerated much faster than my model assumptions. I now predict Bircoin," that's what he typed, Bircoin at $1 million by the end of 2020. "I will still eat my dick if wrong." That's his original tweet. And that's where my site name comes from, bircoin.top, because he obviously made that typo, Bircoin.
I love it. So we're all hodling the wrong coin.
Yeah, we should all switch over to Bircoin because that's going up to 1 million.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so I'm not the first one who had the idea of tracking it. There's one guy, I think his name is Diego Rod, and he had that beautiful little site that works on your phone and still works today. and it just asks the questions, will John McAfee eat his own dick? And then it says yes or no. And that was depending on where the price was in relation to his bet. And I was like, how is he calculating that? And then I saw that he's just thinking of if Bitcoin was something like an investment with compound interest, and you just go up and up and up by a certain percentage day by day. And then we would slowly but surely reach the 1 million. And that's what he was comparing it to. And I was a little bit confused because it always said, no, he wouldn't eat his own dick. So Bitcoin would go up to 1 million. And then I looked at it a little more, and I saw that we were, during the first month, indeed high above that prediction line. And Bitcoin was actually rising faster in value than it needed to reach that 1 million by the end of 2020. And so the math looked okay to me, but I'm a more of a visual person, and I wanted to see it on a chart. So I did what any sane programmer does. I Googled how can I make a chart, and I found a tutorial online. And I have to give credit to that. And in fact, I forked that on GitHub too. It was by a guy named Brandon Morelli. He does some really great tutorials, and this one was built in React.js, which is a JavaScript framework that's very responsive and it's very fun. And I always wanted to do something with that. And this was my first project in React. And so I thought, this is going to be a nice project. So I took his tutorial and I added some features to it. Because what he had was just a chart where you can see how the Bitcoin price was developing during the last month. And you could see how much percentage you win or lose. And so I took that and I added some sliders to zoom in and zoom out and change the scale. And so if you have it open on your computer, and maybe our listeners can take a look at bircoin.top too. When it opens, then you can see that it has when you look at the numbers on the Y scale of that chart, they don't go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They go up 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because it's a linear, not a linear scale. It's a logarithmic scale. Because when you look at most of the charts, they look like a hockey stick when you have growing stock or something. And that is because it looks totally boring. You have the impression that at the beginning, it just goes from 1 to 10 or maybe to 15. And that's all down on the y-axis. Because it doesn't look so impressive going from 1 to 10. It looks very impressive when you go from 10,000 to 100,000. And when you look at it on a logarithmic scale, then you can actually see that it's just as impressive going from 1 to 10, because that's just the same distance on that chart, charts visually, as it is going from 10 to 100 and then from 100 to 1,000, because at the end of the day, that's an order of magnitude. It just went up tenfold. And so when you think back, if you were invested in the beginning, you would have made the tenfold amount. Because when you start at 1 and you go to 10, then it's tenfold. Yeah. So that's why this chart is choosing the logarithmic scale. And when you scroll down a little bit, you can change it over to the linear scale, and then you see that typical hockey stick, and you can go back to the logarithmic scale there.
I like logarithmic much better.
Yeah, at least for this type of growth, because at the end of the day, we are talking about something that is a natural growth, like compound interest, you're growing by a certain factor. No matter what you're looking at when it grows, if it is like you have an experiment where bacteria grows in a petri dish, or if you look at other stuff growing, you have a doubling rate. The amount is doubling in a certain time, and that's how stuff grows until you hit a certain ceiling. When the bacteria runs out of the nourishment, or if the petri dish is full, then obviously you hit the ceiling. But you usually grow at this rate at the beginning.
So yeah. There's something I find very interesting here on your on the chart that you made. I noticed that whenever we go above the projection, it shows how many days ahead we are of the prediction, and every time we go below, it shows how many days behind we are the prediction. So it's kind of interesting because you could see where we dropped off, right? And
exactly.
and we peaked obviously in the amount of days that we were behind, and now you could see we've quickly caught back up to exactly. Back to that point.
What you're referring to is when you move your mouse, or when you put your finger on the chart, when you hover over it, then you can explore that certain point where you are. And indeed, right now we are very far behind. We should, if it went on that straight line, the straight line on the logarithmic scale, and maybe I should mention that first. The growth is extremely fast that we would need to go to that 1 million. And as exciting as that sounds, it would really grow by 0.484%, and not per year, and it's not per month, it's per day. So it's 0.5% per day of growth. And the really crazy thing is that it did more than that during the first month. When we were at the peak, it was like 292 days ahead of that curve. When we were at that peak where it went really high. So it was growing a lot faster than 0.5% per day. But right now, starting from the day he made that first tweet, and growing by that 0.5%. Today, right now, when we're talking here, so it's if the listeners listen to this later, today is June the 2nd, 2019. We would be at 61,267.43, 0.44, and 4.45. So you see, while we are looking at it, that the cents keep going up. This is actually how fast the price would have to grow to meet that 1 million. That's exactly what it does. And so it compares it to that. And right now, we are 85% below that prediction line. Some people say he's never going to win that bet. And I don't know. What do you think?
You know what? Exactly. You know what? I'd obviously love him to, I'd obviously love him to be right.
Some would love him to be wrong because they would love to see him lose that bet and see what he does on public television.
Sure, but at this point, you can just, you can make that up in CG, in CGI or something like that. You don't need to, we don't need to see him do it. I'd rather see it go to 1 million and just shock everybody. Yes, and then just watch the whole entire financial sector completely scatter and try to come up with all new narratives. And I think that would be much more entertaining. The ripple effects of Bitcoin going to $1 million in that time frame would, I think, like, the entertainment value would far surpass that guy eating his dick any day.
Yes, probably. Exactly. Yeah. And but when you look at the chart, you can see that there were some months, and there were actually quite a period where it was growing really fast. And overall, I started the chart, or I'm pulling the data from CoinDesk. They provide an API for getting those prices, and I start the chart at the 2011, January 1st.
Yeah.
And there it is, 30 cents. And people sometimes ask me why I don't start earlier. And there's actually no real data. You know, there's that guy buying a pizza for, I don't know, what was it, 10,000 Bitcoin, and he got 2 pizzas for it. So that's when people actually started seeing value in Bitcoin. That was before. But now in 2011, we have some historical price data. And so in 2011, we saw it reach $1. And a little later, it went up. In the middle of 2011, it went up to $19 or even $20. And people back then were thinking, this is totally crazy and this can't be it. And people were selling it, were happy they made a killing with their Bitcoin. And this is another feature when you want to explore the chart here. You see that little bar down there where you have, there's a little blue line there.
Yep.
With a little white knob on the right. You can grab that and move it to the left. And that's when you zoom in, you know. And this is how you can actually look at the chart the way people would have seen it back then. That's when the whole price goes, you know, when the Y scale goes to 30 or something, then that's when you zoom in, and then you can really see how crazy the Bitcoin price went in the past. And you can imagine how people back then must have felt.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's really, anyways, it's really incredible that you did this, because I've always wanted to, you know, I've always wanted to take a look at a chart, you know, of Bitcoin in this way and be able to at least do some of these features, you know, with like the being able to switch back and forth and, you know, just see it like this along with compared to somebody's actual prediction, you know, and see whether they're winning or losing against it.
Yes. And of course the prediction was what got me started with this. And people keep asking me if I really believe that he can win this bet. And I honestly don't have an opinion. Bitcoin doesn't surprise me anymore. And I'm just like what I said at the beginning, one Bitcoin is still a Bitcoin. And the technical innovation is so impressive, and it works so well when you look at the way we can transfer money permissionless all over the world. It's really an impressive thing. And even if Bitcoin goes back to 1,000 or 100, it would still work, you know, for transferring money and for paying for stuff. So the technical thing is still as impressive as it is. But personally, I don't think it will ever go back to 1,000. It will keep rising, I think. And with the maturing technology, I think the price of a Bitcoin will go up. I don't really know if it will go to 1 million and when it will. Yeah.
I noticed on your website, so besides the chart, under the chart, you have you have some interesting anecdotes. Like number one, you describe, and I'm terrible. I'm terrible at any kind of advanced math. But you actually go on to describe the mathematics behind like how you do how you figure out the chart, and how you do the charting. But then you also go on to explain like some other pieces, like such an expensive currency. And you go on to explain, you can buy and spend fractions of a Bitcoin. And it's like, it's interesting. Your site isn't just a price predictor, but it's also like a good little resource for a newcomer that wants to get like a big snapshot of Bitcoin without noise.
Yes, I was surprised to see that many people were visiting my site, and actually, in the beginning, I just made it for myself, to be honest. I put it on Reddit and I said, look, people, what I made. I didn't even have a proper domain back then. I had a domain lying around that I just registered. It was fnordprefect.de. That's a German domain, and it was just a fun name. If you know the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you know that guy, Fort Prefect. And if you know Illuminatus by Shea Wilson, then you might have known about the Fnords. That's a concept that well, it's
you're one of the few people that I've ever spoken to that knows what a Fnord is. I actually used to have a Fnorder app on my phone.
And, really? And did you see it? Did you see the Fnord?
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. Okay, so
I just that thought popped in my head, and I registered that domain. Didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And so I just used that one and put it on Reddit. And I said, look, people, this is the chart. And then people started bookmarking exactly this stupid domain. So I still kept it online. So it's still available when you type in fnordprefect.de. And then I have a third domain that's dickline.info because John McAfee used at one time he referred to this line as his personal dick line. And I'm a German. I don't know that many slang in English, and I didn't really know that a dick line was something like a panty line for a guy. And so I thought that's a nice domain, and I registered it. And then I noticed people were saying, I'm not clicking on that. I'm not clicking on dickline.info.
Nobody's going there.
So I think Bircoin is the one.
bircoin.top.
But that's the reason why I have 3 domain names for this. But like I was saying, many people come to this site. I have at least 1,000 people visit my site per day. Sometimes it's 3,000, sometimes 10,000 when some people tweet about it or when it's on the social media. And I've noticed that when you Google Bitcoin prediction or Bitcoin McAfee, this site is on the first Google search result page, which is really impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's amazing.
Such a pet project here. And that's when I thought, maybe there are some people who see this for the first time. And so I felt obligated to write a little bit what most people know here in the crypto scene, what a Satoshi is, and that you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. And I felt obligated to address that issue, what you hear from most newcomers, that this is just a big, huge waste of energy. And I had to write a little bit about that too.
I love that you put a proof of work segment in there to explain that about wasting electricity. And of course, as you may or may not know, Dan Held wrote a really nice piece on proof of work as well. And I actually believe that this material, regardless of whether, we put together, pages and pages of it, or it's just small anecdotes, no matter what, I think it's extremely important because there's such a large amount of misinformation about proof of work that's out there. So I think it's really great that you know what I mean, that you put together this site and put all these resources together in one place. Not just the Bitcoin price tracker, but giving these nice little pieces of information to somebody so that they can get this nice picture all together.
Yes, and it's interesting that you mentioned Dan Held, because I just the other day I linked the blog entry about proof of work. So the last paragraph in that thing links to his proof of work blog post, which is extremely well written and very in depth. So people who want to dive deeper into that, they can follow that link from my site. But I didn't want to copy that. Yeah. So, And another link I put in there is, that's when you click on that blue link where it says compared to gold, credit cards, and stock markets, where you can see, a graphical, representation on a site that's called, Visual Capitalist, where you can take a look at how big Bitcoin is compared to a lot of other assets. So like compared to stock or compared to, currency, gold, money supply in general and stuff. And then you see that even at this relatively high price, or relatively whatever you compare it to, Bitcoin is very, very tiny.
This is anyways, it's very nice. I just went to go check that site, the visualcapitalist.com. It's really cool that you put these links in.
Yeah. And so and you said that math scares you a little bit, and I'm not really. I'm a nerd, I have to admit that, but I had to look up all the things about compound interest, about logarithm and stuff. I had to look that up again because it's a little time ago that I had it in school, and so it is difficult, and that's why I made a way to make your own prediction. I don't know if you discovered that yet. There's this one form right below the chart where you can type in your personal start date and your start price, and then you can put in your percentage per day that you think is realistic, and then you can put in your target date, or you can put in your target price, and it will automatically calculate the percentage per day that Bitcoin would need to grow. So you can make that, and as soon as you change numbers there, you get a bookmark link below that chart, and you can share that link or bookmark it in your browser and follow your personal price prediction here, right on my site.
It's really cool. I'm looking at that too. I'm telling you, it's like it's phenomenal. All the little things that you put into this into this site.
Yeah, and it's really fun to make it responsive. That's really now that we have browsers that support JavaScript so nicely, it's almost like an app. It's not like a static website. It really works. It's really fun to make that. Mm-hmm.
So I can't get off. I can't get off the fact that you know what a Fnord is. I need to ask you what got you into reading Robert Anton Wilson?
I think.
How old were you?
Oh, I think I was 23. I'm not sure.
Of course you were.
It could be. I think I really was 23. And I was watching about a movie about the German hacker Karl Koch, who was going by the name Hackbart. He did that KGB hack, and I found it really, really interesting. It's a fun movie. He was a guy from the CCC, and back then I didn't know much about the Chaos Computer Club, but that movie really got me interested, and it mentioned illuminators in so many places that I really had to read that book, and I loved it. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
You know what? When I was in college, one of my friends said to me, like, we were talking about different books you had to read, and I was just getting into like some metaphysics and stuff like that. And, I'm talking to him about different books. He's like, listen, you don't need to read anything else but this one book. He's like, read this book. He goes, and you'll never have to read anything else. Now, unfortunately, he was wrong, because once you read that book, you end up tumbling down a completely different rabbit hole. But that book totally opened my eyes to so many things. Wow.
Yeah, like so many really crazy fictional books, they open your eyes. It's like reading Brave New World or reading 1984, and you suddenly see stuff at politics today, and you're like, wow, this is exactly like this dystopia book. And, I think that book is really in there.
Did you ever get because I don't know if you recall this, but they had, from that, they believed in the book, at least, they believed in Eris, right? She's they were Discordians.
Yes.
And they have the Principia Discordia.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've ever read that book, but I have a copy of it, and it is absolutely, Anyways, it's super interesting stuff. You're the only other person I know that that has ever actually gone down this path. So I find it super interesting that I got to meet you.
I'm not really sure. I think if you talk to other German hackers, because the Chaos Computer Club is probably called like that because of that book, because alias and chaos and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the name of the movie?
I think it was 23. And
the movie was just called 23.
Nothing is as it seems, or something like that. I tried to look at it online. It's more like a B movie. It was in the theaters here in Germany. I don't know if it was ever translated to English.
Well, I'm going to try to find it. Did you ever see the movie The Number 23 with Jim Carrey?
Yeah, don't confuse it with that one.
No, of course not.
Different 23, yeah.
But it's very interesting because, of course, they talk about the the law. Well, essentially for them, it has more to do with the number 23 and not the law of fives. But it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's nice, but that was just how did we get there? Because of my domain, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's because your domain.
Prefect, yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't. It's totally fascinating, man. You're blowing my mind. That's awesome. That's cool. Okay, so look, if do you have anything? Do you have anything else that you're working on, or something that you're adding to the site?
Actually, I'm out of ideas here right now. I think I have it refined here at a certain point. People ask me to translate it to different languages, but I think English is a universal language here, and I don't think I will do that. I put everything online on GitHub, and people can fork it. They can help me change stuff about it. I'm totally open to pull requests. So if somebody wants to translate it or help me here, I'm really happy if people help me here.
Cool. I'm gonna post obviously in the show notes. I'm gonna put a link to your site. I'll put a link to your GitHub. And Raumi75. If I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's really amazing to have you here, and I'm so glad that I got to meet you on the Raspiblitz roundtable.
And do me a favor, play around with that parameters thing here and put in your own prediction. Maybe you want to put that in the show notes where you say this is where you see Bitcoin. Of course, you can project it going down, or you can project it going up. But it's really fun if you put that in, because maybe we talk in a few years and we see who's right and who's wrong.
You know what? I will do it, but I'm definitely not vowing to eat any body parts.
No.
I'm just putting the price prediction in there, and that's it. I'm making no guarantees.
No, of course not. It's just fun. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, it's fun talking to you.
Yeah. It was fun talking to you too. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's great. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Cool. I hope everybody enjoyed my discussion with Raumi75. If anybody wants to get in touch with him on Twitter, he is at Raumi75. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me on Twitter or Telegram, I am at CoinIcarus. As well, if you want to send me an email, I am funwithcrypto@protonmail.com. Thank you all for joining me. Catch you all next time.